Good evening. Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Joe Payne of the Las Vegas Advisor. And tonight we have a very special guest, somebody who's actually played real significant hockey. And
significant.
Very significant. Very significant. And Lindsey Brown is here. She also has a show weekdays, 3 to 5 p.m. on CBS Sports Radio, 11:40 a.m. Lindsey was an All-American goaltender at St. Anselm, and she also played at that place that's in Columbus. But we don't want to talk about that place.
That's okay.
Well, you know,
all right. We can gloss it.
But we've got two topics today. We're going to keep it real sort of current. The big topic we'll start out with is yesterday, completely without a question, or he just felt like he had something to say. Robin Lehner was up at the podium after the pregame skate and went off on about an 11-minute rant about mental health and specifically about the NHL, in his opinion, not following through with their agreement that when a certain number, I believe 85% of the people on a team and traveling party were vaccinated, that they were going to loosen up a little bit of the COVID restrictions. And you know, we all know that the restrictions on the NHL players have been pretty severe from the bubble last year, you know, all the way through this year. They can't go to dinner with teammates on the road. They basically are living, you know, hotel, rink hotel, and that's how it is. But Robin Lehner really stepped up and he really let the NHL have it. I mean, he punched them right square in the nose. The topic of mental health is bigger than the game. We all know that. He is the advocate for mental health. Everybody knows his backstory. If not, you can find incredible articles about what he's come through to get to where he is. But this is a massive thing. All of us have had chats with Robin pre-COVID in the dressing room, and we've observed him taking questions from reporters all through, you know, our time when we were allowed back there. My opinion, that man, he's not telling a lie. That what he told us yesterday on that video is his absolute truth. And I think I'm inclined to believe that he believes that. I'm not sure where the answer is. Lindsey, you lead off. I mean, what's your take on this?
I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's a real pleasure to join you guys, especially to talk about this circumstance. Because as a goaltender, I know that mindset. And then as someone who deals with chronic mental illness in day-to-day life as well, Robin Lehner, as you said, is the foremost advocate in the NHL in pretty much anything, but like especially in mental health. And the hockey culture in general, we know, is not exactly forthcoming. I mean, the fact that anybody talks to media in general, it's usually like pulling teeth. Like it's just there's a lot of coach speak, there's a lot of we before me. But the thing about Rob, and I'm glad that you pushed off from the point of his honesty. As someone who is bipolar like he is, that has had the mental health struggles, that doesn't have a cat bothering them in the middle of their interview for the second time already. And with someone with the journey that he's had, I mean, to not live your life with honesty as like one of your pillars, one of your values, would probably be very invalid to someone like Robin. And I think that's why it's important that you pointed it out, and for everyone to keep in mind when we're talking about this stuff, because why would he lie? And when we're talking about a topic like this that is really just starting to get into the public consciousness of being destigmatized about mental health, but still so shallow, I think that's really the biggest message about what Robin had to say yesterday in the press conference. Like the shots directed at the NHL aside, and we can get into that and all of that as well. But I think the most important part of that message is him basically giving an opportunity to other people to think about this in a more nuanced way outside of just well, we're all going through something right now. Like, you're not alone. Like, go seek help. Like, call this number if you need to talk to someone. Because I think in many ways we're ready to have that conversation, but I don't know if we're prepared to. And I feel like those are two very different words and places to be. But Lehner is one of those guys that doesn't care if you're not ready. He doesn't care if you're not prepared, or if you don't understand the nuance. Like, he has a really skillful way of being able to speak from his heart, and to do it in a controlled manner that he does. I think speaks volumes to him as a communicator, as well as what he's talking about, and as an advocate. Clearly, this guy spends a lot of time thinking about this, living through this, and it's a daily conversation that we all need to start having, to be totally honest. At least that's my opinion.
Joe, what do you think?
Well, what I found interesting last night was in the post game, Mark Stone was asked twice if he heard the same thing that Robin pretty much spoke about. Mm-hmm. And all he would say was that he has Robin's back 100%. Where I thought Mark had an opportunity there to say, yeah, I believe I heard the same thing, or the same. They dangled that carrot to us. Hey, if you guys, sure, if like 85% of you guys get vaccinated, we'll allow you to possibly leave your hotel room, go to dinner with your mates. I found it interesting. But what I also found interesting in the pregame skate, normally you don't hear from the goaltender who's not playing, but it almost seems like Robin made a point. He might have went to either Sage or Eric or Alyssa and said, hey, I want to talk with the press today. Almost mm-hmm. like he had an agenda. He wanted to get it. He wanted to get it out, and that's what I find interesting.
And clearly, this didn't happen yesterday. Clearly, this has been something that's been percolating with him for, I can't tell you how long, but if I was going to guess, I would guess it probably started in the bubble last year,
Right. I think the straw that broke the camel's back occurred yesterday, and I agree with you in terms of this kind of starting to develop in the bubble. We have to remember, though, that Robin's mental illnesses didn't just show up during the pandemic. Just I think many of us are kind of realizing how many of us do have a touch of mental illness, or have experienced that, or somebody that we love or know has experienced that. And that's a new experience for some people, but for people like Lehner, for millions of people across the world, life's already really tough, right? And so for it to further compound with the conditions that they're having to adhere to as professional athletes, and they make millions of dollars, no excuses there, but at the end of the day, they are human beings, and we know that money doesn't buy anything other than things.
Sanity doesn't buy sanity.
Right. Exactly. It buys stability to an extent. It can take care of a few check marks on your list, but it can't fix a disease. It can't fix which way you're born. There's so many different ways that we can kind of push professional athletes to the side and say, well, they can't experience the same problems that we do. They so do. And especially just to kind of get back to where I was taking this thread, they can't go to the grocery store. They can't go out to eat together on the road, as you mentioned. And so when your brain and your mind is in a very friendly place, it's a hostile place, and that you're in further isolation because you have to be. And then if you or anybody else has ever struggled with depression, with anxiety, with any sort of symptom of potential mental illness, is that you start thinking that you're a problem, that you're a burden, that it's just better that you can deal with this by yourself. You can dig yourself out of this hole. We just have to think about it. We can think our way through this. You're a smart person. You can figure this out. And that's not really the case. And it's not because people aren't capable. It's just that we shouldn't expect ourselves or other people to save themselves from drowning, and to not create an environment and a mindset that incentivizes people talking about what they're going through, like legitimately, not just saying like, well, I'm struggling, like what specifically are you feeling? Like, are you suffering from suicidal ideations? Are you having trouble getting out of bed in the morning? Like all of these things that are, again, so hard to talk about and sometimes so specific. At some point, we all kind of go through that rut where it feels like you can't do anything. And when it comes to the way that Lehner presents it and that he speaks from, I think he comes from that place that like we were just talking about, that honesty, because he has to live it day in and day out. And when you have that awareness, when you see something that is wrong, that you don't agree with, that you know with every fiber of your being is going against or is being detrimental or harmful to people, to step up and talk about it and put yourself out on that limb, and not just do it like the one time he did it with the Athletic article a couple of years ago, like you said, like do your research on his journey, but to do it constantly. You know, that's another weight, another burden put on him as well. And so I'm not really sure where this question started, but I know that when it comes to the struggles that we're all just starting to talk about, these aren't new concepts. It's just, we're finally starting to really understand the urgency of the situation and just how prevalent it all is, not just in hockey and the people we know, but everywhere.
Well,
I'm sorry, Lindsey, do you think how quickly the NHL came out to kind of try to squash this thing, do you think that was more damage control than anything? Or do you think that they truly want to make it clear that they didn't say it had something to do with the compete level, that they were really more concerned about the player's safety? I mean, because if you look at what the so-called protocols are, and you look at what happened in Vancouver, the protocols didn't work in Vancouver. I mean,
Right.
literally 19 players, including staff, are infected. So how did this so-called, perfect bubble protocol didn't work in Vancouver, but it's supposed to work everywhere else? I don't get that,
Yeah, I mean, I chalk up a lot of the Vancouver situation due to the variancy of their COVID strain. Apparently, it was much more highly contagious. And regardless, like you could put in all the protocols, you could take all the glass out, you could put everybody in their own individual like room. We're not the ones in control. And so I think the NHL, in terms of the swiftness that they decided to address it, I'm not exactly a person that always trusts what they say. I could
okay,
very
Lindsey,
much.
Nobody in this
Right.
world believes them all the time.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like they're a shield, and it's a shield for a reason. Like we're talking to a faceless corporation at this point. And it wouldn't surprise me if those things were part of discussions early on. And clearly things have changed. And I don't necessarily blame them in staying in this mindset. But I do know that the league is not exactly the most effective communicator, and things get lost in translation, even if you are. But, and I think this is what Mark Stone was talking about too, in terms of, I don't think he skirted the question. I think that he gave the answer to the one that we should be asking, that we should be talking about, which is that larger conversation rather than the who done it, who said what, because regardless, their protocols aren't going to change in terms of relaxing them. I would have a very hard time believing that. And that's really crappy. It's shitty in many ways. But at the end of the day, they can continue on the road that they're going on in terms of their protocol, but also support their players better. Like there are ways that we can get better. And I just think they want to save face. They want to make sure that it's not the wrong message getting out, just like Stone said, because it's about the larger conversation. It's about supporting people like Robin Lehner, who said he's speaking for so many others that have reached out to him, that they're struggling, whether they're in the league or just an everyday person. Because like I said, most people aren't going to take that initiative. And so I think it's just more of like, we dotted our I's and crossed the T's over here, but everything else, talk and go. I think that's going to be a part of the story that's kind of swept under the rug, because it doesn't really matter that much, because nothing's changed technically, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think that the point that Robin made that hasn't really been addressed is how he validated his argument with the NHL, and he was talking about the competition. And if we step aside as Vegas Golden Knights fans and people who write and talk about them, he listed examples of the unbalanced way that it was that the protocols have been informed. The Washington Capitals lost 3 players, and the NHL said play. The Golden Knights lost Alex Pietrangelo and Thomas Nosek, and they got shut down
mid-game.
So the NHL has, I don't want to say a credibility issue, but the optics are bad. And Robin Lehner very excellently and very astutely, in defense of his position, pointed out that the NHL protocols have been unevenly applied, and to use the competition element as the reason for all of these protocols, it really doesn't hold water. I do believe that, like you said, those conversations happened. They had to happen. They weren't just going to stick these guys in a bubble and say, we'll see you in 2022. The NHL, I think they're in a difficult predicament. Vancouver could have tanked the Vancouver situation, could have tanked the whole concept. To have one division go on points percentage and have the other 3 play their full 56 games would be an inequity and an absolute disaster. So they have some liability in this. I think your point about the Shield was outstanding. Joe and I lament not only how the NHL, but the Golden Knights tell us something and 50% of it is a lie, and the 45% of it is an untruth, and 5% of it may have a sprinkle of reality in it somewhere. But I don't know what's the move past. How do we? I mean, it's not going to go away, because now civilians have heard Robin Lehner speak, and they go, "Who's this giant Viking-looking of a man speaking so eloquently about such a difficult, not only NHL, but real world thing?" We all know domestic violence up, suicide up, childhood suicide up. All those things are up, and they're all a direct result of pandemic and quarantine. So how are we going to put this in a place where we can move on?
I don't know if it's a move on type of subject, to be honest. I think we don't talk about it enough, and I think that's what kind of fosters the fear and the apprehension for people to talk about what they don't know, to speak their heart, to speak their mind. I know that I feel this, that the last few years I was a lot more likely to kind of say what I wanted to, what I meant, and not really think about how I was saying it and what I was saying. Everybody kind of minds their P's and Q's a little bit more. And I think that's kind of bled into areas that I certainly didn't intend. But that's the thing, to approach the situation in a certain way in one context and not expect that to start applying to other aspects of your life. If you're continually practicing that skill, or stopping yourself, or pushing a certain conversation kind of back into the chorus, that's what you're going to get. And so you're right. There's very much I don't know if it's call to action that Lehner put forth, but it's more, I think, a call to contemplate. And I think the NHL could do such a much better job in so many ways, especially in this realm. But I think they get caught up sometimes. Like you said, Vancouver's out for 12, 15 days variant, like there's players still out, and they're going to have them come back, 12 days, and they're going to play 2 games in 3 days. And then we have to get the season done. We have to get these games in. And as crazy as it would have been if they would have decided, well, the Canadian division, we're going to go off of points percentage. It's not the end of the world. Like you can handle that. You're the NHL. Like you change schedules all the time. You didn't think that you were going to be able to bubble people. You didn't think that you could just like cancel games day of, but here we are doing it. And I think it's in terms of the conversation that they probably had, and when they talk about rushing back Vancouver, when they talk about suspending a handful of Washington Capital players that are Russian teammates together simply because they all went to the same hotel room early in the season. You have to make an example. Like that consistency, that absolutely weighs on all of these things. And I think that's where the frustration comes in, because the NHL isn't consistent, even when they do have some of the best intentions. But the problem is that we as humanity try to plan things and we forget where we are in the present moment, the current moment, and focusing on where we are with that. Because you can intend a bunch of things. You can say we're going to have this protocol, we're going to get these games back on schedule, we're going to start the playoffs on this date because Olympics starts on this date. Like all of that literally doesn't matter. Like if we ever learned anything from this year, that is what I have learned, is that you have no control. And the quicker that you can kind of grasp that and be okay with that in some level, I think the better it is, because you would avoid so much of this confusion with Lehner, with other situations, enforcing protocols, hell, enforcing, contact to the head, or was this a goal? Was this goaltender interference? Like we split hairs all day. And so to not expect that to be the same thing, like I said, where if you're holding back in one area, it's gonna seep into the rest of your life. It's the same thing with this. If the NHL can't get uniformity to tell you whether or not something was a goal or offsides or not, why would there be uniformity when and understanding and a full kind of consideration of what's at stake here? And by what's at stake, I don't mean the seasons. I don't mean if we're gonna get a Stanley Cup playoff or not. I'm talking, head trauma to your players. We're talking mental health. Like those are the conversations that don't always have to be the forefront of everybody's mind, but certainly much more than what it is. If you're going to talk about all of the competitive edges, that was what Lehner was saying a lot, that they were prioritizing competitive edge over human life. Well, if you want to talk about competition, if you want to talk about this, fine. But guess what? There is going to be equal time, equal effort, equal resources dedicated to the other stuff that we ignore. And I think that's where the NHL goes. It's not about moving on, and I think it's about stepping up.
Go ahead, Joe.
I think I personally think that the NHL is in the midst of a beta program, so to speak, here, because this is all relative. Like nobody's ever had. The world's never had a situation where we had to contend with what we're faced with now. And the NHL, in my opinion, has been following whatever the NBA does. If the NBA does something, the NHL the day later was the same thing. And I think that's the problem. You know what? Step up, decide what's right for your league, not because this is what the NBA is doing or this is what Major League Baseball is doing. I think the NHL is dropping the ball on that. But I do have a question for both of you. Were either one of you disappointed in Mark Stone's answer to the question about did he hear the same thing that Robin Lehner?
Go ahead, Eddie.
No, I'm not disappointed at all, because he made the most important point. The most important point, and he reiterated at the beginning and at the end of his statement, was, I support Robin Lehner 100% all the time. You can't, I don't think that this is a question where you're looking to get a piling on answer and a bunch of players standing up in front of the microphone saying that they're struggling for mental illness. I think that the captain said exactly the most important thing without putting himself into the issue. And Pete DeBoer said the same thing. He said that the list is longer than Robin. Now, I don't know if he's speaking specifically about other Golden Knights who may be struggling or other players that he's aware of in the NHL. I don't think either of them ducked it. I think that they took the exact right tact in saying, A, they support their player, and they didn't turn this into taking his spotlight, one, deflecting any of the reality of what it is, two, and the third point is, this is not something where everybody's going to jump up and start waving pom-poms and get involved. So no, I don't think he ducked the question at all. I think he spoke his mind as a human being first, and the rest of the stuff, the hockey stuff, is going to sort itself out, because once, Sage sent us that video in the morning, the cat's out of the bag and it's not going back in.
I agree. It's overwhelming with you, Eddie, on that. It's about having your teammates back, and usually that's a given, like you would expect that, but it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to live it, and it's certainly another thing to believe that when you're a teammate. And I think Mark Stone has been nothing but an exemplary captain since he got that. See, I think they should have given it to him last year, but I understand they didn't want to step on anybody's toes. But your point about not stealing the spotlight is incredibly important, and communicating to us, but also to Robin, to his other teammates, that there's no problem here. We have no problem with what you're saying. And whether or not it's 100% true, there's no way that any of us are 100% true any of the time. And sure, there were some liberties taken, but like you said, the core of the message is about supporting Robin, supporting what he's doing, the messages that he brings, and making him feel seen and heard. And that actually is a really tall task these days. I think, Robin came here, the trade deadline happened, and then they played for like a week and a half, and then everything changed. And it's not like we as a community were like, Robin Lehner, we love you, come here, we are one of it. Like, it was there's a lot of friction between the fan base and their love for Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner, and that continues to this day in many ways. But because they're not able to get together outside of the rink, because they're in hotel rooms, there's no dinners, I feel like there's still a lot of foundational elements to be built between this team and Robin, just because it's been such a weird kind of start to their now long-term relationship, not to mention the concussion things, not to, all these different just diversions. And so I think there's probably even an added layer of importance that Mark Stone came out and somebody said. I think DeBoer, wasn't as like, yep, we're here, but he knows his place as a coach. Like, that you're not supposed to really have that type of relationship with your players, at least not the same one with your captain. Like, those, one person goes in the corner and grinds out the puck, the other person's going to be in front of the net to score the goals, and then you have to play, like, everybody knows their role. And I think they handled it as well as they could have, as well as they should have. And it's just the continuation of an ongoing conversation. And for anybody that's kind of like, well, this could create distractions, this could create problems, like, this isn't what you're supposed to be talking about. What about the commission painting for Marc-Andre Fleury as the playoffs started last year? What about Marshy jumping in the Instagram comments, basically torching people because they were giving him crap in his comments on his Instagram? Like, there are so many other ways in which there have been distractions on this team, and to loop in what's happening in this situation versus those doesn't even compute for me.
And what's interesting is Robin went out of his way yesterday to also say that when he said, you guys are creating the drama between Fleury and I, behind the scenes, sure, Fleury and I are really good friends. And I believe that. But there is that, and Lindsay, this, because there is that competitive edge. You want to play. You don't want to sit on the bench.
Right.
That's going to be that thing. I don't think and I think he was wrong to say we're creating drama. We're just reporting on the fact that, all of a sudden he came from Chicago and pretty much stole Fleury's job.
What else do we have to talk about? A lot of people that don't necessarily, have the depth or the insight to really dissect this. I think this is just as much a product of us as media people are not doing our jobs the same way that we have. We are not privy to the same information. We aren't, it's just such a watered down version. So this is an easy way to go. It's an easy thing to create a wedge between goaltenders. And you're absolutely right. There's a competitive friction. Like, one of my best friends from college was the goalie that I competed with every single day. Both of them, actually. I loved them. I've traveled with them. I've stayed at their houses. I would take a bullet for them if I needed to, if the situation presented. But when we were on the ice, I hated them. I wanted to make sure that if they let in a goal, well, I'm certainly not. And if they make a big time save, well, guess who has to supersede that? And that's a healthy competition. I think in so many ways, I think Fleury is still the Vezina leading candidate right now. But
really?
I don't think he goes into the offseason and with a different mindset saying, I need to find an edge. I need to get better. I need to find a different level and attack it in the manner in which he did. If he didn't have the pressure of Robin Lehner, that his net wasn't taken, I don't think it was taken from him during the playoffs. He just didn't have that when Malcolm Subban was here. It wasn't somebody who was a legitimate competitor with him because he knew he was just so much better. But when you have that, it forces you to find another gear and you reap the benefits of it. And that's, I totally agree. I think a lot of it is fabricated. But then I would say to the Knights, well, then why don't you let the players come out and talk to us a little bit more? Like, why don't you open, there are ways we can get better with that as well.
Lindsay.
But yeah, regardless, it is a very fragile relationship, goaltender to goaltender. Like, trust me, I've had ones where I do not get along with them, where I don't like them. I want, it's not just hatred on the ice in many ways, but when you're on the team together and the mutual benefits of competing with that in mind, like you said, it's all about winning. What does he care if they're winning? And that's 100% true. Would you like to be in there all the time? Sure, but if that's happening, maybe you're opening your team up to more chances for failure, for more losses. Like we saw what happened to Fleury towards the end of that run when Lehner was just coming back.
I think what happened to Fleury in Edmonton in the bubble actually has inspired him this year. I think he may be playing the best he's ever played, minus a couple of games back about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where he kind of stumbled a little bit. But I think he's playing, and I've watched, being from the East Coast, I got to see him play a lot against the Rangers in the Eastern Conference. So I think he's playing better now than he may have played in his prime back in Pittsburgh.
Game 7 in 2009, like other than that, I can't really think.
Hey, stop that. You're not allowed to talk about that.
You made an interesting point where you just said that you think he's the leading candidate for the Vezina. You really think that, even when you take the Tampa Bay goaltender into consideration here?
Well, here's the thing. If it was just about stats or just about like once, if we hand out the awards in the exact way that we would think they would be handed out, then yes, Vasilevsky, obviously, never really seen anything like him, to be totally honest. But considering the narrative around, like you said, with the bubble, with the inspiration, totally agree. Having that in the back of the mind, like, let's just pretend we're random East Coast writer that barely pays attention to the Golden Knights. So like basically every other member of the media that exists. Well, Marc-Andre Fleury lost his job last year, and now not only is he playing, but he's playing out of his mind. Has he ever won before? Oh, no, he hasn't in his career, and he's pretty much a bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer. Well, let's look at the people that he's competing against. Vasilevsky that you mentioned. Well, has he won before? Yes, he has. He's won one in the last couple of years. And who's playing in front of him? Oh, the super team? Okay, like one of the big knocks that I always had with Corey Crawford, who I wasn't really ever a fan of, mostly because they used to beat up on the Wild all the time. I'm like, I can play goalie for the Blackhawks. Like, Corey Crawford doesn't have to do that much. And Vasilevsky is different. But with all of these things going into the narrative and the current mindset that is around Marc-Andre Fleury, it's too perfect of a situation for most voters that would usually be, well, I'm still kind of between the two. We gotta give Flower one. He's earned it. Like, if not now, when?
Yeah, this is his last best. Joe and I
Agreed.
talked about it. he's got 1 year left on this deal. We're not going to go into Joe's crazy prediction that he's going to be a Ranger or anything like that. But this is clearly his Flowers' last best shot at a Vezina. Yes, Connor Hellebuck is holding Winnipeg together. And, you know, he said he was a much better goalie than Fleury, and we all know how that ended up a couple of years back. But I'm going to end this one little segment. Yes or no, do you think the Golden Knights management would be happy if it was Zoom forever?
Oh, yes. I think a very large contingency would be refreshed by that. But that's the problem with not necessarily Golden Knights, but with hockey in general. It's like they want so much control that and they're, in order to maintain that, they're willing to sacrifice so much and so many opportunities to market their product, to get their players out there, to create a healthier story narrative, like just environment. And that's what's holding this sport back. That's what's holding it back. Like that buttoned up nature, like the we don't say anything, we're not going to make anybody available. And I'm like, I don't blame them, especially with COVID and stuff. Like, I get it. But at the same time, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. And to take that opposite, just because you can close everybody off doesn't mean that you should. I don't think you do yourself any favors. Sure, you could keep playing hockey, whatever, but there is going to come a day and a time where this team is not the number one seed, that isn't clinching playoffs before anybody else. And when all of a sudden, maybe they're mediocre, dare I say, a bad hockey team, what relationships are you going to rely on? What are you going to do to keep your product interesting and stuff? And so I just think there's so many ways that they can get better by being more open, and that includes in the mental health sphere. But I just don't know if there's enough diversity in the the biggest meetings and in the most important rooms at the Golden Knights, at the NHL, every single front office, because it's historically a sport for white guys. And it's just like, without having that different flow, having different takes, different viewpoints, you're not going to even like see the downside to some of the decisions that you're making until everybody calls you out on it, right? It's like when they put out the tweet following the George Floyd verdict. So I'm not here to rip them on what they didn't include, what they did include, but we could probably do better than a 2.25 line thing about it, right? I know that it's incendiary and that it's controversial, but at the end of the day, like, human being to human being reading the room, can we maybe just run this by a couple more people to make sure it's all good, that this is our absolute best thing we could put out? And I think that's where the league needs to take a step up, and the Golden Knights.
Joe, I think I know your answer, but if the Golden Knights could keep us out of the locker room forever, you think they would be happy about that?
Oh my God. They would be setting fireworks off at the roof of T-Mobile. The further we get to the players, the happier the organization is. I mean, I think the organization would really like us to submit questions, and they can pick and choose what the players are asked. I mean, you can see
like
what
the president.
Yeah,
sorry.
no,
No more.
let's
Sorry, no politics.
No, you're good.
Let's not go there now.
No, you're good.
This
Both
is
sides.
Sorry,
but
couldn't help it.
Lindsay, I want you to put, and because I respect you as far as your hockey knowledge, especially when it comes to the goaltending. I want you to put your coach's hat on here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have both Robin and Fleury as your goaltenders. And instead of going the one game on, one game off, one game on, one game off, would you consider playing a goaltender, whether it be Fleury or Lehner, based upon the style of the other team? Because they are, and even as a non-goaltender, they are two completely opposite goaltenders.
Oh, 100%. Stylistically, they could not be more different.
Would you ever, if you had DeBoer's here, would you suggest to DeBoer, hey, Pete, instead of going one game on, one game off, why don't you play the goaltender that serves best against this particular team because A, they were a really quick team, or B, they're just a big heavy team? Would you consider doing that? And and just go through the top other three teams in the Honda division. Who would you play Fleury against, and who would you play Robin against?
I mean, it's definitely a consideration. I think everybody has their little scorekeeping internally in terms of who would be a better fit in this situation, who would be a better matchup. And you could absolutely do it. Will they? No, because you can gain an edge by doing that for sure. But I think there's a bigger fish, which is who's playing the best. What is our game? What is our best game, and who gives us the best chance to display that? If both of them can do it, awesome. Then it's a great problem to have. But in terms of matching up against some of the top teams in the division, and we'll just go with Minnesota and with Colorado. If they're more offensively, leaning, so if you're the Avs, in some ways you're kind of like, well, if it's an absolute dumpster fire in our defensive zone, which happens quite often, and they're getting sustained offensive pressure, considering how intensive the Avs are on getting shots on net, not just initial shots, but like rebounds. If you look at them while they play, these guys are around the goal mouth and even out to the sides, just looking like the puck's gonna hit my stick and I'm just gonna fire it right away. Like that's how they get these 55 shot totals some nights, because they're just so tenacious about it. And so you're like, well, if that's the case, maybe you want a more athletic goaltender, because then they can make more acrobatic saves. And you're like, well, if you're going to choose between our two, that's Fleury. But then at the same time, sometimes Fleury tends to get a little bit outside of himself, tends to overslide, to overcommit, to get a little bit too busy. And that could basically lead him to be out of position, not only where his feet are or his knees are, but where his chest is, where his ability is to stop the puck. And so it's so tough, because you could plan and say, well, they're going to bring this game, but that's just not the case. That's not how hockey works. And so I feel fairly confident with either of them with the Avs, because it's really about what your team is bringing. I feel like the Avs are the more talented team than the Knights are, because I compared on my show of being, if you're playing NHL, like on your PS5 or whatever, we have a lot of guys that are rated 89, 90, 91s. We got head to toe 90, 91s, but they have a couple of 97s. They have a couple of cream of the crop, and we just don't have people like that to perform at a consistent level. And so when it comes to Minnesota, though, I think honestly, guys, I don't know what you guys think. I think they're so in the Knights' head right now. I think the Minnesota Wild have a distinct psychological advantage right now, and I think if they play them in a couple weeks, maybe if they at least get one win, if not two, up in Minnesota, I think that a lot would be helped with that. But that's the thing. It's like you could pick the goalie like Lehner. Yeah, he's gonna give you the positional advantage. He's gonna make the right reads. What he brings, but you don't know what he's going to bring on that particular night. If they're good, if it's a good night, they're going to perform. But if they're not, well, then they're not. It doesn't matter stylistically,
Okay, fair enough. Eddie, if you were Deborah, would you play the goaltenders based upon the style of the team you're facing that night, or would you go A, B, A, B, A, B?
Well, we've talked about the goalies sort of ad nauseum through the year. I think that AB works for a lot of reasons. And yes, the goalies will always say they want to play. Marc-Andre Fleury got an enormous amount of work, and his performance started to tail off a little bit toward the end. And he has, on a couple of occasions, as we've noted, said his legs were a little bit tired. So now Robin Lehner comes back after being off for 3 weeks. And now the statistics have basically almost flipped. To answer your question, it's the best option for Pete DeBoer in the world to have. They have unquestionably the best goaltending in tandem. $12 million or not in the NHL. he said, and I'll go all the way back to January 15th of last year when he took over the team, I'm going to play the team, to put the people on the ice that give this team the best opportunity to win. That was an absolute benchmark in his very first press conference after taking over. I don't think that's ever changed. I think that his decision in the bubble last year was made because he thought at the time Robin Lehner gave them the best opportunity to win.
Ride the hot hand. That's what we've always historically done.
Right. But this year on the compacted schedule, 56 games, and especially now, I think they're going A-B the rest of the way out. I think that might change a little bit depending on how the playoff setup is, but they certainly are going to keep both of them very fresh for the last 10 games. They're not going to let somebody ride the pine for 7 of the last 10. I think that's absolutely out of the question.
And what I think what hurts Fleury here when we're talking about the Vezina is the fact that he's probably not going to get as much consideration because he's playing every other game, where Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay is pretty much the workhorse there.
Well, but Vasilevsky's been taking a whole bunch of games off. If you look,
This guy's like a serviceable backup this year.
Yeah, they're 6 and 8 in their last 14, and
They've really
6 of those 8 losses have been the backup.
Right.
You know, and the other thing, the pro side of the Fleury for Vezina is the records. You know, he's passed. This is why he's going to win it. He passed Belfort. He's going to pass Luongo. Right. Yeah. This is why he's going to win the Vezina.
Tied for the lead in shutouts. Like he has. There's absolutely like a definite tilt towards Vasilevsky in all the traditional measures.
Yeah, but that's not going to given
exactly. And so it's not a normal year, and that's why I think it's you can't have Marc-Andre Fleury end his career without a Vezina. So it's this year to do it. You know.
So what you guys are saying is that the jury is going to consider evidence that's not been presented during the trial. Pretty much.
No, it is presented.
Mm-hmm. You can't take previous results and award the Vezina for 2021 based upon something he did.
He's second in the league in wins, third in the league in goals against. His team has more points than any team in the NHL.
Highlight reel saves every night.
They have the lowest goals against average as a team. They've given up the smallest amount of goals as a team of anyone in the NHL. All the mitigating factors, and then sure, you throw in a little bit of sprinkle for his career. I think that it would be a massive disrespect to him if he doesn't win the Vezina this year. Without
Fleury during that stretch, this team is competing for 3 or 4 seed in the playoffs. Sure. It's not even close. And that's the thing too, is you're like, well, you have like Pietrangelo, I go, our defense looks a lot better on paper than it does in actuality in a lot of ways, especially when you're actually playing the defense, not scoring goals, not running the power play and stuff in the offensive zone. But yeah, it's an absolute no-brainer that he's the reason why there's separation with this team, and never discount the value of having highlight reel saves. It's every night, but even if it's just like once or twice a week, that gets put up on like NHL Network or like TSM. Like, did you guys see Fleury's latest? Like that continuous reminder of being like, holy crap, like Fleury is like, he's goalie Jesus sometimes, like all the time. Like I think that pushes the sale a lot further than any stat right now, just because of how the game is covered this year and how siloed everybody is in their division as well. Like, I don't know about you guys. I can't pay attention to anybody outside the West. I just don't have the bandwidth for it.
No.
Because why would you? We're not going to see him for a while anyways.
Okay. Let's bring it forward. 33-11-2, 10 games to go in the regular season. The schedule just got completely jumbled up again yesterday. The huge 2-game set against the Avs is now a 1, and we're going to tuck one into the very end. the Golden Knights did exactly what they needed to do, having Colorado off. They gobbled up every point they could. They flipped the script on them now, and Colorado has a little bit of pressure to use their games in hand to catch up. They took a big hit. I mean, obviously Grubauer being out is a big hit. Losing Rantanen is a huge hit. Yes, they still have a couple of 96s and 97s in McKinnon and Landeskog and stuff like that.
Rantanen's the finisher, though. He's the one that scores all the goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the Golden Knights have done everything they can do. They have to figure out, like you said, they have to figure out a way to get Minnesota out of the rent space between their ears. But, I mean, all in all, it's hard to really have a confrontational podcast about the Golden Knights. We've explored their difficulties on the power play, and Joe and I railed for them to put Reeves in front of the net. Well, they put Stone in front of the net instead of Reeves but
worked out pretty well.
Yeah, but they changed the structure a little bit, and they now have a permanent net front presence on both PP1 and PP2. The defense,
and you take away the main vein, which is I think the real crux of the power play. Halsey, you are so meaty right now. Is that it's the structure, but it's also just, what do we pay Pacioretty to do? To score goals. What does he do on the power play? He receives a pass through the slot from Mark Stone. He one times it goes down to one knee and he finishes. That's what he does. Everybody in the world knows that he's doing that now. So, but the Knights, I think the biggest thing that trips them up is their inability to change on the fly. And I don't mean change lines, but like to change their game plan and to approach things differently, because so many things work so well that they don't even like consider a different look, like putting Mark Stone down low. And that's what I mean. It's you take away that passing option because it's Stone to Patches, Stone to Patches, Stone to Patches. Well, now Stone's down here and people are gonna be like, well, who do I cover now? Because this is what we were focusing on. That's why he gets those 2 hinge whip goals, against the Sharks, because that's what happens on the PK when you finally stop being so predictable. They have one less player, so they have to choose.
Here you go.
And that's the guy you leave open.
We both have needy cats right now.
Yeah, look at that. What a play date.
I know. Sorry, Joe.
I'm sorry. I have nothing to grab. So,
Okay.
But the what's got to be scary to at least the other 7 teams in this division is now the Knights basically are going to have almost a week off to practice. And
that was a nice little bonus. They got a couple.
Yeah, they played last night. They only play Anaheim, which should be a walk in the park before they come back and play.
In theory, we don't play well against Anaheim.
But we also have 3 days after.
The point I'm trying to make here is that how scared or how concerned will the other 7 teams in this division be if the Knights actually get their power play performing at least a decent level? Because pretty much it's been pretty horrible for most of the year, other than the 3 power play goals in the last 2 games. So if they get some practice time in, which based upon the schedule, they haven't really had it. If they can get that power play at least buzzing a little bit, the Knights, because I always thought prior to this time, I thought the Knights were going to have a hard time getting out of the division, getting past Colorado and Minnesota. But if they get their power play going, teams are going to be reluctant to put them on the power play. Right now, teams don't care. Let's put them on the power play.
I would like to
they're more dangerous. The Knights are more dangerous shorthanded than they are on the power play.
I think that the Knights should have the option, and like they do in football, to decline
refuse.
Decline the penalty.
We decline.
Decline. We'll stay at 5-on-5.
Good.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lindsay, we're going to put you on the spot because this is going to be the longest podcast in recorded history.
Staying true to my brand. I'm glad.
Oh, hey, before we get to that, tell us again. We want to know all the things you're doing. Radio, podcast.
Yeah.
Give us the business.
I appreciate that. Weekdays, 3 to 5 p.m. here in Las Vegas. The Playmakers is my daily show there. You can AM 1140 if you have a terrestrial radio, or you can download the Odyssey app and listen live or see the podcast that way. Every week we have a Golden Knights focused podcast called The Nightcap. I'm actually going to be dropping an episode tomorrow. I'm making my writing debut as well, at least for this season. It's going to be kind of the podcast and the read along information, if you want to go more in depth of what I'm talking about. And then I'm doing betting videos for the Colorado Avalanche, or at least about the Colorado Avalanche, for Mile High Sports up in Denver. So I think that's all the things that I'm doing right now. I'm probably forgetting something. But on Twitter, I'm at Lindsey Brown 35, LINDSEY BROWN, and then the number 35. And then Instagram, I think I'm LINDZ, because of branding. I put Z's on the end of like sports and stuff just to make it catchy. Linz Brown 35. So that's where you can find all the things that I'm doing or trying to waste time not doing.
Okay. Your last
Appreciate
question.
that though.
You're on the spot. There's 10, basically everybody's, we'll say everybody has 10 games to go.
Mhm.
Where give me the order of the top 4 in the West, and then tell me how they go through.
Are you saying what I want or what I think is going to happen?
I want what you think is going to happen.
Truthfully, and I hope I'm wrong, I think the Avs are going to win the division, and I think the Knights are going to be 2. But regardless, if you're not 1, that kind of just sets your fate in a much different light, because 1-4 plays and then 2-3. I want the Knights to be in the 1 spot because I want Colorado and the Wild facing off against each other in the first round, because then you eliminate one of them and you get one step closer before facing one of them. But I think it goes Avs, Knights, Wild in the 4th spot. Isn't that the true conundrum of this division? Who knows? I don't think St. Louis has it this year. And so I think it's really down to the Sharks and the Coyotes. And I think the Coyotes are just kind of starting to put themselves together. They just got Darcy Kemper back. If they can just like get goaltenders to stay healthy, that would be helpful. But they also just got beat up by us. They've dropped a few games as of late. They dropped the game to Minnesota last night. But I think just by default, I think they get it, because it's just so St. Louis's schedule is crazy to close the season. And I just don't think their defensive core is settled enough to help to plug the holes in their D zone where they don't get scored on a lot, and Bennington's not playing well enough to make up for it. And they don't have it this year, I don't think.
Okay, so you've got Colorado, Las Vegas, Minnesota, and Arizona.
Yep.
Okay, so you have Colorado and Arizona, and the Knights and the Wild.
Mm-hmm. Be kind of a disaster. I'm really nervous about the Knights playing the Wild. But in the same thought too, Minnesota didn't expect to be here. Kirill Kaprizov, I'm from Minnesota, so the fact that we have somebody of this caliber we've never seen it. We've never seen it since like Mike Madonna when the North Stars were still a thing. But there's still a team that is. It's not in a rebuild. I think it's in a restore. And with the urgency that the Knights have, it's cup or bust. I think this year they'd be able to sneak through. But let me tell you, if Cam Talbot turns in even like 80% of the performances that he had here a couple weeks ago, we're going to have some real big problems. Because the Knights just get in their own heads when they get their souls stolen by goalies all the time. Like what happened with Thatcher Demko? What happened with Khudobin? And then all of a sudden they go quantity over quality. No. And so I think the Knights get through there. I think the Avs beat the Coyotes, and then, man, I don't even know if I can make it. I think it goes 7 games. I think there's a strong potential that both of those series go 7 games if they play Minnesota then Colorado. It's so close. There's so much on the line.
No prediction. No prediction.
I mean,
feet to the fire.
I feel like if I say the Golden Knights lose, I'm gonna maybe lose my job or my tires will be slashed. But I think if anybody has more of a chance this year to go the distance, it's the Knights. But it's like the NBA draft lottery. Just because you have the best odds doesn't mean that you're the odds-on favorite to get it.
Joe, you want to?
So I'll take the Knights. I'll send the Knights through, but it's very apprehensive because there's some good hockey teams, and if they play their best game, 100% not a problem. It's just I don't think we've seen that a lot this year.
Joe?
I think I think that goaltending will determine who finishes first and second here. And right now, the Knights have the best goaltending, and I think that that'll hold true. I mean, right now, I got my TV on. Colorado is winning 2-1 over St. Louis, about looks like halfway through the third period. But
Excellent.
I believe the Knights will finish first and play whatever team decides to step up to fourth place, as it seems to be. It could be anybody. I prefer that they play Arizona because they're much more successful against Arizona than they are against St. Louis. I mean, they just finally won games in St. Louis this year, where that's been a bad bond for them. And I would prefer to see Minnesota and Colorado pretty much knocking heads in a 7-game series.
For sure.
And we kind of get the survivor, so to speak. That's the only way the Knights, in my opinion, Knights get out of the West. Is finishing getting a little bit of a softer opponent in the first round, having Minnesota and Colorado go to war, so to speak, and then the Knights are waiting in the wings, and then the Knights have a chance to beat Colorado or Minnesota at that point, through attrition only. And then once we get down to the Final Four, who knows? I mean, I think the perfect scenario, in my opinion, would be a Tampa Bay Vegas Golden Knight final, Stanley Cup final. I mean, you probably have the two best goaltenders, or I should say, the best tandem and the best goaltender, and that would make for an incredible series. And like Eddie and I have said, Eddie specifically, the ice in the playoffs is not really 200 by 85. It's more like 185 by 75. So goaltending, and we all know defense wins championships. So that would be a classic matchup. Whether we get it, I don't know. But I do have a question for you, Lindsey. Since you come from the state that's pretty much the hockey hotbed for the United States, prior to moving out to Vegas, when you heard Vegas was going to get an NHL team, were you one of those people that said hockey will never work in a desert?
No, I wasn't. I would never just automatically assume that something would fail right out of the gate. I just didn't really know how to imagine it, because when I heard that they were getting a team, and I was just like, well, if they're bad, at least people will fly in and visit and buy tickets then. And it was about longevity and the survival of the franchise and getting off to the right foot. And then they played. And then you're like, okay, we're having a totally different conversation right now, because nobody expected that. And for it to be here, like not just an expansion franchise, but like it's in Vegas, like it's almost too perfect. And it was actually this week, it was the 2-year anniversary that I came out here and took meetings to basically secure that my employment here. And I went down to the pavilion, like outside of T-Mobile Arena, because they were playing the Sharks in the playoffs. And when I was considering moving down here and just being outside of that arena, I was just like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And coming from the state of hockey, the hockey hotbed in Minnesota, like the purest of stuff, and playing college hockey on the East Coast, there's a certain way of doing things. And it's one of those things that holds hockey back. But that's why I was just like, when I walked up, I'm like, there's a rave stage here. We got Pat the flag guy. It was, I'd never seen anything like it. And that only happens because the simulation spit out the reality that we live in. And that was a huge part in convincing me that my gut was right, that taking a job down here and covering this team wouldn't just be a good move. It would be such a unique experience, and one that hopefully, if it's a long-term thing, if I can stay here for a long time, like in a traditional sports market in Minnesota, I hear people on the radio that I grew up listening to that have been in the covering sports in Minnesota for 30, 40 years. And like, just to be part of that, like those inceptional moments, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. And hockey in Vegas is a no-brainer, just like it would be anywhere else, because if the product is good and you can get people to buy into relate and associate with the team, that you can't just, that's not a decision you just make. Like, we're going to connect with people. Like, it happened organically in a very, tragic way.
Yes.
But that's what Vegas born means. And that's what I got on my trip down here. And even when people are saying, well, the Raiders are coming, I go, the Raiders are coming, they'll be important, but it's one thing when you adopt another team versus one that's born and that's yours. And I think it's an amazing template for Seattle to live up to. Like, good freaking luck. Like, honestly, they could hire Gallant and do the same things, but like, you couldn't draw it up better to work in the way that it has, and the unique flavor of hockey fan that is very present here in the Las Vegas Valley.
And since you brought up the Raiders, I got something that is going to put all the Raider fans on complete tilt right now. The Raiders and the Vegas Golden Knights have made the same amount of playoff appearances since 1995.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm
Eddie's just like, that's the line. It's too far.
I'm waving it off.
Are you afraid we're going to lose our Raider viewing audience? Because
I'm afraid we're going to break Zoom because we're running at almost an hour already.
Well, but Lindsay's, I knew Lindsay would be entertaining, and that's why
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation.
Lindsey Brown, CBS Sports Radio, AM 1140, 3 to 5 weekdays. Catch her podcast called Nightcap. And after this podcast, I think I need a nightcap.
Right on.
Just for so everybody knows, we're going to put the link to the Robin Lehner 11-minute video in the description of tonight's podcast. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see what we rambled on for the first half hour of this about, it really is a serious subject, and he's a serious man with very important opinions that I think you should take that 11 minutes and listen and maybe learn a little bit about not about the hockey player,
about human nature,
about the human being, Robin Lehner, and about his concerns for humanity, which is much bigger. Joe Payne is always Las Vegas advisor. We're going to come back after another couple of games and keep track of the nights as we go down the stretch. Thank you all for subscribing, and we appreciate it. Lindsay, again, thanks for taking the time. I hope we didn't bore you for an hour and a half, but we certainly appreciate your insight, because you've done something that neither one of us old farts could ever do, and that's play super competitive college level hockey.
It was an absolute blast. I appreciate the invitation, and hopefully we can get another one of these in the next few weeks. That it's a long haul for all of us.
I've stopped pucks, Eddie. The accident.
I can see. I'm looking at your face on the camera.
Right time, right place. Anybody can do it.
It wasn't my intention. They accidentally hit me, but I've stopped pucks. So.
All right, that's it. We're wrapped. We're out of here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lindsay.
See you later.
Bye.